welcome back to the Nose Plays Endless Space 2. We're about to start a brand new game of the Hishu. I played the Hishu about a year ago, and it was one of the very first times that I really spent some time trying to figure out how they work. They're one of the most difficult empires to play in the game, mainly because they have some very, very different mechanics than all of the rest of the empires. Specifically when it comes to the approval system. And there's a lot of details that you have to understand to make that system work. And it's very different and very easy to cripple yourself if you do something wrong. Which is why I got very frustrated the first few times I tried to play them, because you try to play them like a normal empire and it just doesn't work. So, after spending some time with them last year, I got the hang of it and I started to come up with some ideas that I felt would work really well for them. And I've played a couple more games with them since then, and those ideas have largely been successful. So I'm going to continue to work on my game theory for the Hishu, but this will be a playthrough. I don't know how many videos I'm going to do with this particular series, but mainly what I want to do is I want to highlight for new players or players that might be getting into Endless Space 2 and are similarly frustrated with the Hishu as I am, some tips and tricks to help them maybe be a little bit more successful. Again, this is a work in progress. This isn't you know, super ultra high level Hishu play. I'm not an expert on this particular faction or even this game in particular, but I do know quite a bit, and so we'll just try to get as much of that information out there for you guys as possible. I am live streaming today, and it looks like we already have our first viewer jumping in the chat. Colin Walsh says good afternoon from the UK. And I'll try to peek over at the chat occasionally, and if you guys have questions, throw them up there. If I don't get to them during the video, I will try to address them in the comment section once the YouTube video goes live. Just a couple of things about the way that I play the game. I do have several of the DLCs disabled because I just really don't like playing with those systems in the game. So I am not playing with the Umbral Choir or the Nakalim DLC. Those have been disabled. I don't like some of the things that those added to the game. The Vultures will be included. The pirate stuff is not that bad. It's actually kind of interesting, but not really impactful in any real way. And then the Hishu obviously will be included, and they include the Behemoths, which is another aspect of the Hishu that are very different from all the other factions. You get to start with a Behemoth. So I'm just now starting to understand how that works. Here's my game settings. I'll take a quick peek at each page so you can see sort of how I have stuff set up. I also have the Academy quest disabled because I don't like it. And then you guys can take a look at that. So pretty standard. I got all the other factions included. And let's go ahead and get started. I have been gone for a while in terms of streaming. That's been for several reasons. One of the reasons being that my internet has been spotty lately, and I refuse to generally record when in the middle of a live stream I could just drop connection. It's not very cool. So hopefully that doesn't happen today. I'm taking the chance.
From the beginning, a warrior prepares for sacrifice. Touched by blood, the sword becomes the soul of its wielder. We fight, free of our past as gladiators and slaves, to seek our own renown and honor, to follow our own gods. For the warrior walks a path, but the blade foresees it and remembers it. The blade, however, like the warrior, has its own secrets.
So a little bit of history about the Hishu. The Hishu originally was one of the races available for play in Endless Space 1. So if you've never played Endless Space 1, there is a sort of alternate history, I guess you could say, that Endless Space 1 has become. It's not really part of canon anymore. But the Hishu were in that game, and they had some pretty interesting mechanics. They were one of my favorite factions to play back when I played that game a lot more. And then Endless Space 2 came out, and there was kind of an outcry for some of those factions to make it back into the game. And so some of them did in the form of minor civilizations like the Amoeba. The Amoeba faction was another one that was part of the original game that didn't get translated over to the new one. But they did with an expansion later on. And then the Hishu were a full faction that was added after the Vaulters. And the cutscene there was a brief introduction to this guy right here. So let's take a look at this. So this is our Behemoth. This is basically similar to like a Star Destroyer, or yeah, it's basically like a moon base. It's huge. It's ginormous. When we get into a battle later on, you'll see just how much bigger this is than even the largest ships in the game. It's literally like a space station, a mobile space station. And there are 3 different kinds of these. You can set them up for economy, for science and research, and for military use. And so there are some things you can do later on where you upgrade them even more. But we'll be using this guy quite a bit. And we'll talk about why we're going to do with it what we are going to do with it. The main function of these things is we have these mining probes in the beginning of the game where we can basically collect resources with them. And we do this on any planets that have not been colonized. So once a planet's been colonized, you can no longer use the mining probe on it. But if a planet has not been colonized, or a system has not been colonized, you can park this guy and start dropping these mining probes down. And later on, you'll be able to upgrade these and put more mining probes on them, or different types of collecting probes. We'll take a in-depth look at this thing here in a little bit, but before I do that, we got quite a few other things to deal with. So let's go ahead and clear this stuff off, because I don't really care about that. And let's take a look at our ships. So we're going to discuss a strategy that I've been using pretty regularly, involving these guys. So this is our colony ship. It's outfitted with some pretty generic stuff, and we're going to change this design up quite a bit. We're going to create a special type of ship. I sometimes refer to these as roadrunners, and there's a very, very specific reason why I've developed this strategy specifically for the Hishu, but it's been such a good strategy, I've started using it in every single playthrough for every single faction, because it's just so powerful. I would imagine that it's a strategy that might get nerfed if it were, you know, not the end of life for this game and people were still playing it a lot. And it were more competitive, because it's so effective. There's almost nothing you can do that's more effective than this, and specifically for uncovering the map. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply this design to this brood ship design. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new ship design. Engines and I have to give this design a name. We're going to call this the colony ship. Okay, so we've got this brood ship and we've got this colony ship. This one just has engines, and this one has 2 engines and a colony pod. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to find my first brood ship. Now remember, this brood ship design, it had this real crappy design. There's no need for armor, and it's got an empty slot. So, what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade it, and it's only going to cost us 30 dust. You start every game with 100 dust, so you can do about 3 upgrades if you do them right. We're going to go ahead and upgrade that ship. And now, when I double click here, I can see that we now have the 3 engines on it. And it's real important that you make sure you've done all of that before you do this last part. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the Auto Explore button, and I'm going to click Go. And just like that, we're going to start uncovering system after system after system. And this is just super effective at the beginning of the game because there are so few ships in the beginning of the game that are really a threat to even an utterly defenseless civilian ship like this. And you are going to be amazed by turn 20 how much of the map we can uncover with 1 or 2 of these. So that's my plan, is to get 1 or 2 of these out and let them start uncovering the system. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this can be more powerful or less powerful depending on your map settings. The bigger the map is, the more successful this tends to be, and also the size of your constellations can play a huge role. One of the things that can severely slow down this technique is if you pick small constellations or few node connections. We have ours set to normal for both, I believe. So it should be pretty effective, but if you do play around with map settings, you can cripple this strategy a little bit. It just means that you have to research the tech for jumping to constellations a little bit sooner, is all. But it's still pretty effective even on those. In those circumstances, I would probably only build 1 and not 2. But since we're going to be on a map where there's probably a pretty good sized constellation, we might go for 2. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then in our queue, I'm going to go ahead and queue up another one. And then after that, I want to queue up a colony ship. So I'm going to have 3 ships total. We're going to have 2 Roadrunners and 1 colony ship. And we want to get our first colony down probably by turn 10. Definitely no later than turn 10, and maybe sooner if possible. Getting your second colony down is pretty important, and it's something that you definitely don't want to delay too long. Another person in the chat, Jacob Schmidt, says, "What's up?" It's going pretty good, Jake. I really enjoyed my last playthrough with the Hishu, and I just wanted to come back to them and give them a second go and maybe refine some of my thoughts on what I learned from that series. So glad you enjoyed the first series. Hopefully this one will be equally as informative. So we're going to create our 2 Roadrunners and then our colony ship. That's what I like to do at the beginning of the game, and there's a few things we can do to improve the timing of getting these things done. We can actually enact lower fleet cost. Lower fleet costs will reduce the cost of ships by a small amount, and we'll maybe get a turn or 2 shaved off of that time. We could also enact hatched at home, which will increase our industry specifically by 25%. And this is generally the better law to run when you have the option between the 2. Stacking them can be super effective. You'll see there's a little -1 key penalty, and this feather resource is called key. That's what I'm going to call it anyways. That's how I would pronounce that word as I've read it. And this basically is a replacement for approval, and there's some unique things about it, and we'll try to touch on all those details because it's really important to understand the key system to be successful with the Hishu. There are a couple of things you can do that will utterly cripple your economy and just ruin you. And I know this because I've done it. So we're going to go ahead and activate this, and that's going to give us some more industry on our home system. So that's one thing we can do to improve the time in which these take. You can see this was 6 turns, now it's down to 5. Um, there's one or two more things we can do to help improve the industry output at the very beginning of the game. In terms of what we want to build first in this system, let's take a look at our primary planet here. Our primary planet's a jungle system. It is a hot, fertile world, and so that's pretty good. Um, this building is also a really good building that we want to build very early on. It's really, really powerful if you have fertile temperate worlds. Since our planet is only fertile, we're only going to get 2 of the plus 10 industry bonuses when we initially build this. That's still going to be 20 industry, and that's more than Drone Networks is going to produce. But it does take a little bit longer to create at our current rate. So I am going to go ahead and I think queue this up first, followed by that, followed by that. We'll get those base buildings down as quickly as possible. And then in between, we might come in here and switch things around a little bit here and there. Looking at our population, we have 2 Hishu population and one of these guys. This gives us just a little bit more influence, which is nice while they're on hot worlds. Looking at our home system here, we only have 2 hot worlds. And at some point, we're going to want to get these guys off of this system, and we're going to want to fill this entire system with nothing but Hishu. But for now, this is fine. And as long as we keep these guys on hot worlds, we'll get a little bit of extra influence, which is nice. And let's move on to the next important thing. We need to do some scouting. So if we take a look at our scout ship, we have a scout ship with 2 flat cannons, a single probe, and a single engine. I still feel that this design is pretty terrible for a scout ship. It's actually not bad for an early military ship. With this design, you can create some pretty decent early military ships, which is, I think, what its primary purpose is. It's just really bad as a scout ship. And the big reason that it's really bad as a scout ship, science and scout ships really benefit from this type of slot, the support module slot. And you can see when I highlight that, we only have 2 support modules. So that's a problem. Only having 2 support modules means that this makes it very difficult design choices that you have to make. You can either have, well, you can't really have anything. You can have 2 probes and no engines, which is just worthless, because then he moves so slow you never get anywhere. Or you have 1 engine and 1 probe, or two engines. And again, none of those options are great. But we are going to go ahead and design a little bit cheaper version of this, maybe. I'm going to go ahead and reset the original design here. And if I wanted to make any changes, the only thing I can really do is either add a second probe, but like I said, that's too slow. Or take the guns off, but that costs us dust. And there's no reason to take the guns off if we can't replace them with something else. So we're actually not going to change this design at all. But what I really wanted to do was look at this number right here. Movement speed is a really important number at the beginning of the game, and that's because we're going to attach a hero to this ship, or this fleet, with this ship in it, and we want to try to match their movement speeds whenever possible so that we're getting as much movement as we possibly can. So if I make sure that I'm highlighted here and I add my hero to this fleet, we can see that the movement of this fleet dropped to 4. This Peregrine has a movement of 7. Now we're moving at a speed of 4 because we're moving at the speed of the hero ship. So we need to design this ship a little bit differently. We need to either give it an engine here like this. This gives me a total movement of 7. So now we can move together at the same speed. Or we need to give it a engine like this for the bonus speed and remove this other engine for a probe. So what this does is this is going to give us more probe recharges, so we can have basically up to 4 probes in this fleet. But it is going to reduce our movement speed down by 2. And there's really nothing I can do about that because, once again, we have a ship design where you can see there's not a lot of these support modules. And so this is one of the difficulties that you will encounter when playing with the Hishu is you just have really bad scout ships in terms of the numbers of probes and the speeds at which they can achieve. And this is one of the reasons why I developed the idea of using the Colony class ship with its 12 movement speed as sort of a workaround to the very poor science and hero ship that you start with. We don't need to necessarily pull all of those modules off, but I do think I am going to go with the double probes. I think I am. Let's go for 7. I'm almost certainly going to bring this hero back and use him as a governor. I think that might be the best place for him. He's a pretty good governor. He also does make a really good fleet captain, though. And it would be a while before we get a better one. So you can really... This is one of those heroes that really can flex in either position. I might... Yeah, let's just go with the 7 movement for now. Because I might leave him as a captain. And then let's go ahead and remove a couple of these and get our upgrade cost down to 30. And then we'll apply that design. So that only costs us 30 dust. We've used 60 dust. We still have about 40, I think. So that's pretty good. Let's take a look at his stats, and I'll show you why I like him. Number 1, if you sign him in your capital, you get minus 5% ship costs, so he helps crank ships out faster. That is one option you can do. He has this bonus, which is nice. Industry is always nice. Plus 5 on system, 10 food. This one is another one. Plus 5 per hot on system. And we start with 2 hot worlds in this game, so that would also be good. And then your basic normal ones. So you can basically get a lot of industry from this governor. And the ship cost reduction is nice as well. So he makes a pretty good governor. There are a couple of abilities that really make him a nice as a admiral, and this is one of them. Plus 6 movement on fleet is really powerful. And then this one, plus 20% damage on fleet, which I believe can be stacked twice for 40% damage on fleet. And that applies to every ship in the fleet. So if you can get him leveled up and get to those 2 abilities, he makes a particularly good admiral as well. But for now, we're just going to have him with this scout ship. And remember, every time that this hero is with a scout ship that reveals a curiosity, we get XP for that. So that's why we're attaching him to this fleet, so we can get the XP. And we're going to go ahead and grab both of these curiosities. And it looks like we found deciduous trees and Jadonyx. Jadonyx is a fantastic find in our home system. This means we're always going to have a supply of it. And it's an average deposit, so we should get 2 from that. Deciduous trees is also not a bad one. It can actually fix a lot of early economy woes when you use it as a system development. But okay, so that was actually really good. That means we definitely want to grab this planet pretty quickly so we can start collecting these as quickly as possible. Let's see, what else do I want to do? Do we have any movement left on this fleet? We do not. Using probes consumes your movement, so keep that in mind when you're trying to plan your course through the stars. If you're using your probes too frequently, you'll notice your movement's always gone. But shooting a single probe only uses a portion of your movement, so that's good. I'm not sure where we're going to send him yet, so we'll just put him on guard mode. Not that there's much to guard on the first turn here. Alright, let's get through. What do we want to do next? So, we don't have any Hyperium deposits yet, so this is not going to be a high priority. One tech that I do sometimes like to rush in the early game is baryonic shielding, especially if you start with rare earth foams, because this ability, the warp drive, allows you to jump to other constellations with your roadrunners and really get a lot more work done. So getting this early on is going to be important, but it's not critical until our current constellation is basically uncovered. So we don't need that right away. Machine bacteria is really critical in the early game if you do want to use probes, because you get the two special types of probes. They both have some pretty interesting benefits, and so this can be pretty helpful. Also, if we have any step worlds, that's pretty good. I believe we have Savannah though, right? Tundra, Savannah, so that actually makes that more important to me, because we can get the Savannah world, so I might just go ahead and queue that up. Probably not going to be the first one we research though. Over here, I don't really care for this with the Hishu. Their basic approval building gets replaced by an influence building, which is interesting, and can help if you're starting to struggle with influence cost, but it's sort of small. One thing that is cool though, if you get this early, the +5 influence that generates every single turn actually increases your control bubble. So the size of this bubble grows based on the amount of influence that you produce each turn. So having that researched and built early can actually make this grow very, very quickly. And that can be really powerful in a situation where you have a very dense cluster of systems near you, because if a system falls inside your bubble, other factions are unable to colonize it. So that's pretty cool. But it can take a while. And again, it's not clear that we're dealing with a situation where we have a very nice dense cluster of systems where that makes a lot of sense. So probably won't be doing that. I do like this building a lot. One of the most powerful things that you can do in the game is get population rolling very quickly, and one of the best ways to do that is food buildings. This building in particular benefits us because most of our planets are hot or cold. In fact, I believe all of them are hot or cold except for the Savannah world. So we get a little bit of extra food from this building, making it a little bit more effective than it would be for some starting systems. And in this building, these unique buildings that you can only build once in your empire work really well in your capital. And especially, like I said, if we can make the entire capital Hishu only, we'll get +3 food on our Hishu civilization or pops. So that's a lot of food, and that can mean that the system can fill up to completely full, and then we can actually ship Hishu to other systems to fill them up faster while we recover those populations in a couple of turns. I do like grabbing that one early. And then the last two ones that we can look at are ubiquitous surveillance and survival suits. I'm not a big fan of this for most factions. This building, until you get to a point in the game where pirates or other factions are trying to invade your systems and blockade your systems, It's just not worth building. It's too early in the game for that right now. And then this technology chain gang program can help produce more manpower, which is really important if you're building lots of military ships to recover your manpower. But we don't really need that. What is important, however, is building ships that you can do your own invading with, and that's where this technology module comes in handy. This will add additional manpower to your ships, which allows you to do invasion drops, and specifically helps you take out pirates pretty quickly in the game. The other thing that it does is it gives us this building, big data shipyards. The plus 40 initial XP is basically one level, level 1. So you'll start a ship at level 2, essentially. And that just boosts the stats of everything from your accuracy to your damage. All your stats get a slight increase every time your ships gain a bunch of experience. So this can be really handy, letting all of our ships that come out of the hangars be a little bit stronger than factions that don't have this technology and building built. So I like this quite a bit. The other thing that grabbing one of these two does that you need to always weigh when you're doing a tech is we only need one technology from this tree to unlock all of these. So these are our rewards for making it to tier 2. So we get better guns, better shielding, higher cap on our fleets, more manpower deployment and capacity, shields, and laser weapons. So all of these come with this one or this one, whichever one we take first. So we'll probably throw that in the queue. And then I'm not going to grab tier 2 stuff right now. So let's decide the most important thing that we're going to need right away. I am going to build a fleet right around turn 20, so we don't need this guy right away. The food building we're not going to need right away because we have other buildings that are already clogging up our queue that would come before this one anyways. So maybe this is the right research. I think we're going to go ahead and leave it as is for now. Just to reiterate, one of the reasons why I like grabbing this first in this situation is it's going to reveal more curiosities for our hero and our scout ship to uncover. And it's going to unlock our Savannah planet for colonization. And if we do get in a very small constellation, unlikely but possible, we can jump to another one very quickly with our scout ships. So, okay, so far so good. This turn's taken a long time, as it always does when I play. First turns are always the longest. So the last thing that we need to do, or one of the last things we need to do, is talk about our Behemoth and what we're going to do with it. Let's get to the right screen here. So you can see there's these little icons down here, these probe icons. We can launch our probe on any planet that is not currently colonized. There are two major advantages of doing this. The first advantage is if there are any strategic or luxury resources on that planet, your probe will collect them for you. So if we put our probe here, you'll see that we're actually going to collect a little bit of jade onyx and a little bit of the deciduous trees. Not the full value of 2, but half of it. The other thing that it's going to do is it's going to grab the resources, the base resources of the planet, at a rate significantly lower than its actual rate. So the actual system here, if I mouse over it, you can see it produces 4 food, 5 industry, 7 dust, and 2 science per population pip. So every population pip on this planet will collect those resources as a base amount. Our probe will collect about 15% of that, but what it does is it's per population that we have on our home world. So it's not actually 0.6, 0.7, 1, and 0.3. It's going to be those numbers times the population that we have on this system. Everything gets funneled back to your home system. And so it'll be 3 times that number because we have 3 population pips in this home system. So that's where the probes can get very powerful, and that's again why growing your population extremely quickly can be very beneficial for the Hishu. Getting your population down is really, really good. Jacob asks, does the probing deplete planets like Cravers? No, it does not actually deplete a system. You can only ever have 1 probe at a time on a planet, but you can actually have multiple probes. So if I were to upgrade my Behemoth for more probes, I could do a probe on this planet and a probe on this planet and a probe on this planet until we colonize them. Once we colonize them, we can no longer throw probes on them. But there is no depletion factor for doing that with these particular probes. So I have a choice to make. One of the things I could do is I could grab a probe over here or drop a probe over here, and you can see that the industry value in particular is a little bit higher. It's 2.1. That would be about 6.3 extra industry if I were to drop it on this system, and that would help us build our ships a little bit faster. Or we could drop it over here and we could get some more science. So we have a system with a little bit more dust, more industry, or more science. And so being choosy with your probe is one way to benefit the rest of your system, and particularly your home system. I do believe that the probes always funnel those resources back to the home system. Everything gets funneled back to the home system with the Hishu. That's basically how it works. You build a super tall capital system, and then everything else kind of, you get other systems and stuff, but a lot of the times you're sending resources from those back to your capital. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab this. I could collect a little bit of these materials, but I don't think there's any value in doing that right now. The better value is getting those ships and those early buildings built as quickly as possible, and that's going to help us do that. So if we go here, you can see we've been able to boost our industry all the way up to 72. We got about 14.6 from percentage bonuses, 23.3 from the planet, our colony base, and then 10 bonus industry. The bonus industry I haven't mentioned yet, and this is one of those little details that can cripple your economy in the early game. I shouldn't say cripple, but you can damage your economy in the early game if you're not aware of this. So there are 2 major types of support module, economy support modules that you start with the Hishu. The first one we've already talked about is the mining probe. This thing has a 5-turn cooldown. It works for 4 turns, so there's always like 1 out of every 5 turns that you're not able to use it. And then depending on if you remember to drop it immediately again, you could miss out on a lot of turns of economy. So you got to be really diligent. It's a lot of micromanagement to use the probes. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the probes, although I am coming around on it if you're willing to do the micromanaging, and especially once you're able to upgrade them, because you can get better probes than this. These are the starting probes. But there's also this this support module, and this one just gives you a flat 10 of 4 of the 5 major fidsies. So it's given us 10 industry, 10 dust, 10 food, and 10 science. And what you can do with these is, once you get the ability to retrofit these, you can just fill a ship with a whole bunch of these flat resources and then park it on a system that you want to grow or that you want to be more powerful, to have better economy, and then just leave it, and it'll just produce a lot of resources for you. And there are also ones later in the game, instead of flat bonuses, that do percent bonuses, and that's where it really gets interesting. Finding the right mix of flat versus percent bonuses to get the maximum amount of value out of your economic behemoths can be really strong. The downside to this is, if we move this ship out of the system, we get nothing from this. And that's where you got to be very careful, especially when you're like trying to really micromanage how quickly you're going to build things. if you move this ship away, you're going to lose 10 industry, and that can have a big impact at the beginning of the game in terms of how quickly your ships get built or how quickly your structures get built. And so you really want to weigh moving this behemoth off of your home system in the early game. Is it going to be worth it? Another thing that can really hit you is, let's say your economy is running okay, you got a little bit of dust in the bank, you're stacking away 3 to 5 dust every turn, you're doing fine, and then you move this behemoth off of your home system and all of a sudden you're negative. Well, that's because you just lost 10 dust per turn by moving this. So there's a lot of little things in the early game that moving this guy can impact if you're not careful, because of this module and also because of this one. So this is going to help us out. And now if we go back to here, you can see we've not quite shaved another turn off of this. So we're 2 turns on this ship. It's still going to take 5 to get the colony ship, but that's okay. We'll get it done and it will be good. Alright, I think we're finally ready to end the turn. There's one other little thing I wanted to look at that I didn't check out, and that is this. So, actually, we can benefit from that deciduous tree deposit in the very beginning of the game, because these guys like it. So we can use this as a booster. That'll give us a little bit more influence. Since we got a stack when we uncovered that curiosity, we don't actually need to mine it right away. But if we want to continue to run this booster, it will be important to get mining on that or colonize that system soon. We did not find the other one though, so we're not gonna be able to pop a booster for them just yet. Alright, now we're ready to go ahead and end the turn. So far, so good. Go ahead and move those. And you can see that something happened that's already going to shave another turn off of this, because that did say 3 turns, I thought. Maybe it was 2. I can't remember now. I look at too many numbers. Let's check out our economy. So we're still at 72. Yeah. It must have said 2 earlier. So 2 and 5. Now we're at 1 and 4. Alright, and you can see we're already getting some good intel. So I can see there's a cluster of curiosities over here and a couple over here. Let's take a look at this system. Large steppes world and a barren world. Not great. Life form and subterranean. What we're really looking for at this point is we really need to find titanium and Hyperion. Arctic barren. This is a terrible system for us. Ruins and atmospheric. Looks like we've got a large lava world and a gas world. Alright, well, so far I'm not super impressed with the quality of systems we have right around us. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're only highlighting this fleet. We don't want to move our behemoth, and we'll send him the opposite direction that the Roadrunner is going. And this would be a good opportunity to talk just a second about the key system. So basically the way you have to think about this resource is this is your approval score at all times. Whatever this number is, that's your approval score. And just like regular approval, if you get above a certain limit, you can get some benefits, some percent bonuses to your Empire, Dust, and Science. And if a system has a high key score, you can get some percent bonuses to your food and your influence. Now this number is pretty much static, but there are a few things that will cause it to change. Number one, is the Hatched from Home law that we passed. This Hatched from Home law reduces our key by 1 per active system that you own. So this can get quite expensive and can dramatically reduce your approval over time. That's a big deal, and you can find yourself in a situation where you ignore this modifier for 3 or 4 turns, and pretty soon your economy's starting to struggle, and that's because you've dropped below the threshold where you're no longer getting the benefits. And if you hold it too long, you can actually get so low that you're getting penalties, just like approval. So you have to keep an eye on this. There's another interesting thing that you can do. There are these resolutions in here that we can pass depending on how much key we've accumulated and if we're willing to spend some of it. So for example, one of my favorite ones is this guy. Way of the Obsidian Eagle. Way of the Obsidian Eagle will boost the industry of systems by a massive amount. You can get up to 45% bonus to your industry if you are in a Behemoth key zone and this is active. That's a lot, but it does have a cost. It costs 2 titanium and it costs 5 key. So that's not a lot considering how much you get, and it's a one-time expense, but this will last for 10 turns. It's like a 10-turn booster. So it's pretty good. I like it a lot, and I try to run it whenever I can. This is why we're going to make titanium one of the most important resources in the early game for us, because the sooner we can start activating this, the better. This one is nice. War Banners gives you some nice movement bonuses to your ships. So it's pretty effective. Doesn't do a whole lot else, but the movement is very, very helpful. And then the last one is Homeland Defense. This one, if you can activate it before your systems get invaded during a war, this can greatly reduce the effectiveness of anybody's invasion fleet against your captured territories. So, and then if you can get your key above this limit, you can you can activate this one, and this one gives you some massive fleet bonuses, defensive fleet bonuses and offensive fleet bonuses. You cannot activate one of these unless your key is above that threshold. So it shows that we can activate both of these because we're above those thresholds, and we're only lacking the titanium to be able to activate this one. We could not activate this one unless we get our key out here above this. I think this is like 90%. So we got to be above 90 to be able to activate that. Another thing to remember about key is you top out at 100. You can never have more than 100 key, and so there are times where you'll overflow and you just lose all that bonus key. So it's actually important to spend this as you're accumulating so that you don't waste any overflow. Alright, that's enough talk about key. We've got to find titanium before that becomes really relevant. But we do want to keep an eye on this penalty, because over time we may want to deactivate that law so we don't drop too low. Now, I guess the last point about key, and I think I mentioned it very briefly, and the reason that we're building these Roadrunners is there are 3 major ways that you collect key in the game. The first way is by exploring systems. So the first time you uncover any new system, your ship will generate a little bit of key for your empire. And so one of the easiest ways in the early game to keep a positive flow of key is to uncover lots of systems, and that's what the Roadrunners are all about. And you'll see that despite the fact that we're running negative on our number up here, we're actually going to probably gain more key than we spend over several turns. So that's one thing. The other thing is obviously military engagements, taking over systems, defeating systems in naval combat, or defeating fleets in naval combat. All of those little actions grant you small amounts of key. don't think there's anything else we needed to do this turn, so we'll end that turn and move on. Ugh, another trash system here. What do we got? Arctic and Frozen. Well, at least we found some curiosities, so we can start collecting some XP on our hero. So let's go ahead and drop those. And because our Peregrine is the only ship with probes, it's going to take a while for us to recover them, and we can only ever carry 2 at a time. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wait another turn. Our hero did get a level, and I have to decide right now if I'm going to make him a fleet commander or if we're going to go ahead and bring him back to the capital. I don't have enough intel to really make a good decision on that just yet. I mean, either way, it's not going to be a total loss, but I think I want to go with the industry, and we'll send him back to the capital right around turn 8 or 9, whenever his cooldown finishes. And hopefully we'll have at least 2 levels on him by then. Okay. So we got a nice chunk of influence. We found Eden Incense. And we completed our brood ship, colony ship, in 3 turns. We don't even have a good system here to colonize. Let's go to our space station or hangar, deploy this ship, and then this one is just another Roadrunner. I'm going to send him down this way. And then once we get there, on the next turn, whenever we can, we'll activate Auto Explore. And so now we're exploring in 3 different directions here. You can see this is interesting. 5-planet system. What do we got? Arid, desert, and 2 toxic worlds. This is the most promising system that we've uncovered so far. It's not great, but we do okay on hot worlds, and a 5-planet system, particularly with huge systems, even though they're toxic worlds, there's going to be a lot of population that we can fit here over time. And we can always terraform some of these really bad planets. Also, look at all those curiosities. We definitely need to get a ship over there with some probes. Alright. Baryonic shielding's almost done. We're going to have a really hard time collecting curiosities with the current setup that we have, which is making me think that we need to get over to here. There were no steppes worlds in this system, were there? No. Where did I see a steppe world? Was it this one? Ah, it was this one. Large steppe. If this is titanium, that might be okay, but I think this is better. And then we have 2 ash worlds, a lava world, and a medium desert. Lots of curiosities over there as well. We're gonna have to pivot and get some more ships with better curiosities, or better probes for getting all of those curiosities, because this one ship with a really bad one is just not gonna cut it. So I am going to have to pivot on some of this tech here. I've got to get to this technology quickly, so that means we're going to have to grab both of those, and I think if we do it in that order, that'll be okay. That's going to be real critical. There's too many curiosities for me to delay that. Getting machine bacteria is so important to a faction that has trouble with curiosities, because these two probe types are just so much better. But then something just occurred to me, and that is we don't actually have titanium at all yet. Alright, I have a thought for how we might get that, but it's going to be difficult. Whew, that is a long lane we got up here. So this is that really dense cluster that I was talking about earlier on. If you were to like be in this home system, getting that influence up to snag all the systems around you, then you can kind of ignore them, grab stuff out here, and then come back and backfill these at your leisure, because other factions won't be able to. Alright, so we have encountered a warrior civilization. That's kind of cool. We can demonstrate that we are the superior warriors and take them over, maybe. What kind of planets do they have? Tundra, snow, and barren. Ruins and subterranean. It is possible that they have a strategic, which would be very helpful. And we just start with free population whenever you take over those guys. Declaring war is also a great way for us to build more key up. So if we start to spend some of this key, you can see we've already bumped it up to 79. And that was directly the result of uncovering these three systems over here. And maybe this one too. Let's see, do we have another probe yet? We do not. I am going to have to move these guys back over here very soon. That's going to leave whatever's over here. We're just going to be out of luck. Alright, 2 turns till our colony ship is up. And we have nowhere that we really want to colonize. Alright, building ships with defense and power is kind of difficult. Assimilate a new minor faction. That one actually is not as hard for us to do. I think we're going to go with the Faith. We'll get a random technology and 5 key for completing this. This is going to happen. It might not happen for a little while, but this is definitely not going to happen for a little while. In order to build ships with defensive power, we have to research a new ship design. The current ship designs don't have enough defensive slots to really get above 257. It's just not possible. But this is possible with the ship designs we have. So it's probably likely to happen sooner. Alright. So our action is complete. The mining operation is over. We'll have a 1-turn cooldown. And then we'll be able to deploy the probe again. So we cannot deploy the probe this turn, but we will in 1 turn from now. This is the thing that is frustrating. There is no alert that you have mining probes available to you, only when they've been consumed. So it's really easy to forget to reactivate your mining probe if you're not careful. Alright. Baryonic shielding has now been researched, which is going to give us the Savannah colonization, the warp drive, and more curiosities. So we might see some new ones pop up in places that they weren't before. Let's go ahead and finish moving our ships. I'll look at these systems real quick. Toxic. Oh, here we go. Average deposit of both resources on this boreal world. It's kind of far away. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. That's really the system that we needed, like, over here. If we had found that one over here, that would be a no-brainer. What did we get down here? Some very interesting systems with lots of positive anomalies. Alright, well, we have our probe. Go ahead and get that, and then I gotta make a decision now. Am I bringing this ship back to grab these, or am I just going to build a new one and keep going down this way? I think getting more information is going to be critical, so we're just going to actually go down this lane and see if we can't figure out what's over here. Alright, still can't use the probe just yet. XP. One of the most worthless things you can get. Then we'll activate Auto Explore for him and set him and forget him. Just let him do his job. Alright, so it's only turn 5. Take a look at how much of the map I've already uncovered. And this is only going to become even more successful over time. There is nothing in the game that will really mess with these two guys until about turn 20. Somewhere between turn 15 and 20, you may start to run into pirate blockades, and they can usually retreat away from them a couple of times before they get destroyed. If they don't get destroyed and we uncover a lot of the map, we can always bring these guys back to one of our home systems pretty quickly, retrofit them with a colony ship, or a colony support module, and then send them out to colonize a system that they've uncovered. So, worst case scenario, they get destroyed, but they uncover a massive amount of the map. Best case scenario, we bring them back and eventually use them to colonize really critical systems that we are aware of specifically because of their existence and how effective they've been in uncovering the map. This is really important if you want to try to rush like an endless world. If you find some endless worlds near you, you can rush to those and pick those up. So, all right, moving on.
I greet you in the name of the 4 families.
Okay, this makes me feel better about my decision to bring our hero back to the capital by turn 8 or 9. Starting near the Lumeris are not a very aggressive faction. They will expand aggressively, but they don't tend to attack you nearly as often. So as long as we can kind of cut them off with the bottleneck of our own, we should be in good shape. If these are our only neighbors, that would be fine with me. Starting next to the Cravers, I'm probably going to be wishing I had that hero as a military fleet commander, but let's see, where were these guys at? All the way down here? Okay. So grabbing this system as a bottleneck, or this system as a bottleneck, might be important. Or at least putting a ship to blockade those systems. Over here we found a large arid with the subterranean, atmospheric, only one subterranean. If this large arid does happen to be titanium, this 4-planet system might be our best bet for an early colony. But it's going to be hard to say for sure. What I could do... Do I have any movement left? I only have 1 point of movement left. Yeah, we'll just leave these guys alone for now. for some more of those probes. All right, this would be the turn that we should be able to activate this. Again, I have the choice of collecting a little bit of these resources or grabbing more industry. I'm always going to go for the industry right now, I think. And then let's reassess whether we want to continue to build these. We'll get that ship out in orbit so we can deal with it in a minute. So 4 turns to get Xeno-industrial infrastructure down. 8 turns for cerebral reality. This is going to be less than 8 turns because once this building gets completed, we're going to get some significant industry. Colonizing this is going to give us another 20 industry from this building. So actually, moving that up in the queue might be what I want to do. I tend to stack my queue in the early game based on how much industry each building gives us. Industry begets industry, basically. So the more industry you can create in the early part of the game, the more you'll have in the immediate future. Stacking pretty much all of your industry buildings at the beginning is one way to really get your economy rolling. This means that right around turn 10, we'll be able to pivot from building these base buildings into building some ships, which we're going to need to do at least by turn 20. Alright. And then we have this colony ship. And I have a big decision to make. I don't have a good way of revealing curiosities at this point in the game. So I have no idea which of these systems around us that kind of seem like garbage but could actually be good, how good they are. In fact, the only system so far that I'm even aware of where we can colonize is this one, and we know for a fact that there are some good resources here. But it's kind of a trash system other than the 2 resources. I don't have a lot of other options though, and if I don't start moving there now, it's going to take a long time for us to get there. So I think we are going to indeed, it's going to take 5 turns with our current movement to get there. That means I'll have 10 turns roughly to colonize that so that we can have at least 2 systems by turn 20. And that's not ideal. There are many games where some factions can have as many as 5 systems by turn 30. The Hishu are a little different. The Hishu do not expand rapidly. They really try to cherry pick their systems and funnel a lot of resources to this home system and just make the home system good. Okay, let's keep moving here. Got a second probe. Subterranean are going to be pretty important. I like to get life forms, subterranean, and ruins. Signals can also be good. Let's see. Okay, Jadonics. Another Jadonic system. And we have a little bit of movement. I don't have any probes, but we can go ahead and finish scouting here. I think we're going to just hang out here for now. Just to double check, our hero is locked for another 2 turns. and then I can bring him back to the capital. 2 turns will be enough to get a couple more curiosities on that system. Alright, we got our first population growth, I believe. Yep. And that population booster might have been the thing that influenced grabbing this over this type of population. Let's see, what do we got going on up here? Okay, one going, one coming. Alright, cool. Go ahead and end the turn. And we're about an hour into this playthrough. I'd like to get to at least turn 10 before we end the video, and maybe I'll do like 10 turns at a time and get us through the early game, and then we'll see how much time I'm going to spend in the late game with this faction playthrough. But I've had some really fun games with the Hishu as of late, so just put him in blockade mode. Yeah, there's just not much for us to do right now. We're just quickly grinding away. This is going to help a lot, so let's take a look here. We're at 81 industry right now. Getting this building completed is going to be huge for our industry. Yeah, 20. That's quite significant. That's a 25% increase in industry with one building. And notice everything in the queue now, the turns are going to go down significantly in how long it takes us to get some of these things built. This would also be a good one to get done. And we'll need to look at redesigning some of these ships, specifically this one here, very soon. We're 4 turns away from machine bacteria, which means I can produce better ones of these right after drone networks. So maybe we stick some scout ships in here. Did the tundra uncover any territory we can colonize? Not really. Yeah, none of these planets are tundra except for maybe that one. Yep. So even getting the tundra worlds didn't help us. Okay, no worries. Just keep trucking along here. These turns they're a lot faster than the first turn of the game, for sure. Alright, this should be the turn that I can bring my hero back. Atmospheric. Hero leveled up, so we'll grab that. And he is now available for transfer. Where are these guys at? Okay, they're over here. So the Lumeris started in this nice little cluster. They've already got a colony started. And they've got a minor civ right next door to them. This would have been a much better start for us. Our start, I feel, kind of sucks. I guess the advantage is if we bottleneck this territory here, we could basically have all of this to ourselves. But that's a tall order. We'll see what's this way. But the first thing I want to do is let's get our governor locked and loaded. now we're up to 131. And if we look here, we can see that our hero is producing 20 industry currently because he produces 10 for any system that he's on, and then he produces an additional 10 for every hot world that we have colonized. So if we were to colonize this system, we would be able to get his bonus up to 30, which is not bad at the beginning of the game. We don't have the ability to colonize lava worlds just yet, though.
You're one of our favorite fish in this galactic sea.
Alright.
Welcome, welcome. How can the families help?
I don't think there's anything that they can really do, but they already have deciduous trees. So they might actually value deciduous trees as a trade item. But they're not going to give us anything. And we can't really trade technology until we get later in the game, so. Alright. Just a couple more turns and I think we'll go ahead and end this video for today. And I will probably pick it up later this week. I need to decide what I'm doing with this ship. Part of me wants to just bring him back and retrofit him, because he's going to be able to do so much more work once he's retrofitted. So I think that's where I'm heading with him. We'll retrofit this design and then we'll build one or two of them. I need one or two more turns because I've got to finish this research. But that's going to take 4 turns, and he's going to be back in 3. I should have stayed one more turn. Either way, it won't be a big waste of time. Mining operation is done. I have to remember to check it next turn. Let's redeploy it. This ship made it here. Let's begin colonizing. And let's talk a little bit about one of the big ways to get in big trouble with the Hishu. So, Hishu colonization is different than every other faction in the game. Hishu use key to colonize systems. That means you basically spend your approval to colonize systems. The problem is, you can see that because we've been diligent about scouting, and even though we're at a -1 per turn, we're all the way up to 87. I could spend 75 key right now and instantly colonize this system. And that, you might think, would be a great idea. Why not? Just do it. The problem is, there are no good ways at this point in the game for us to generate more key. That's going to drop us all the way down to like below this threshold. We're going to have like -20% everything to all of our resources. And it is going to absolutely cripple our economy. So Nose, how do you deal with that? Well, you deal with it the same way that most other factions deal with it. You wait. And over time, this number is going to continue to drop. It will drop for the next 48 turns. After 48 turns, it will achieve a minimum number. I can't remember what the smallest value is. I think it's like 15 or 20. And once it hits 15 or 20, it will no longer go down anymore. And that is pretty much the opportune time to do this. Now, we're not going to wait 48 turns to colonize this. We're going to let this drop some, and then eventually we're going to build this up high enough and be in a situation where we can recover it, specifically by starting a war, probably with that miner sieve that's over there. And we will take that system, generate a bunch of key, and be in a healthy place for approval. But we definitely do not want to spend 75 key when we only have 87. That is going to be catastrophic. So now that that timer's started, we'll get a chance to get this one roughly around turn 20, I think, is probably where we'll grab it. Hopefully also by around turn 20, we'll be in a position to take this over, and that will give us 2 systems at a minimum. So we'll be running a 3-system empire in between turn 20 and 30. That's kind of the play that I'm looking at making. What else can I do this turn? Economic Behemoth can just stay here. We do have him on blockade, so if scout ship shows up, we'll have a chance to shoot at it if we want. Not sure that I really want to mess with the Lumeris. I kind of want to be semi-friendly with them until we're ready to crush them. But it will depend on what our other neighbors look like, if we have any. Alright, I think I'm going to do one more turn. And that is primarily so I don't forget to do this between recordings. Alright, we're about to lose the ability to mine this territory. And that is because we're building a colony on this right now. And once the colony is built, you're no longer able to mine. So it would make no sense to go ahead and start mining here. But it does make sense to continue to mine industry and continue to get our economy rolling. Population booster has ended for these guys. We can go ahead and activate it again because we still had enough surplus from the stock that we got when we uncovered the curiosity. Alright, and it's looking very much like we're reaching the end of our ability to use these guys to colonize, to scout. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get some probe ships that uncover part of the constellations that are not attached to this constellation, or we're going to have to turn them into colony ships and start colonies somewhere. And so I'm thinking, instead of having this guy continue to help down this other lane, we're just going to send him back here and probably retrofit him as a colony ship, and I'm going to use him to probably take Taki, because that looks like a really juicy system with 5 planets that's actually decent. I could also go for Ugaro. There's some good resources here, specifically the Jadonics, which is fantastic. And one of the things that I just realized that I didn't mention earlier is one of the advantages of colonizing this planet is that we're collecting this resource while we're colonizing it. And we can do the same thing in Ugar, wherever that Jadonics was. We can colonize it, but not actually finish the colony and still collect the Jadonics resource. Because we already have this researched, we can do that. And that means that we can actually activate this for the first time, which we should totally do. Now, the way that you activate these, this is a little tricky. I didn't realize this at first. You don't just click on it. You have to click on it, and then you get this little key icon. See my little feather? And you have to click on the system that you want it to be activated on. This is not empire-wide, this is system-wide. So we'll click on that, and now this system is getting a massive increase to our industry. So we went from like 130 to 158. Pretty significant, and again, things are getting turns shaved off of them left and right as we get these completed. This is going to be another 20 industry, this is going to be 10, We're going to be able to build a fleet pretty quickly once we transition to fleet construction. And that's going to be important. What do we have here? This colony ship should go this way. Oh, looks like there's... That's the end, huh? Yep. So that is the end of this constellation. So we have completely uncovered the Eridanus constellation in 11 turns. And that was using 2 ships. This is just a little bit less than 20% of the galaxy. We haven't gotten the 20% message yet. But we're probably pretty close to 20% at this point. And that means that getting these probe ships up and snagging a visual of a neighboring constellation is going to be real critical to making use of them. Until then, I think what I'm going to do is bring them both home, and we'll just put them in the hangar until we're ready to deploy them, which should be relatively soon. So, but I really like our start so far. This is not a strong start, so keep that in mind. But I think we've made the best of it, despite the fact that we have no really good systems near us. I am a little concerned about getting systems started a little bit too late, but you can see we're not that far behind the Lumeris, so I think we'll be okay. The next thing that's going to happen in the next 5 turns or so is we're going to get pirates popping up, and pirates are a great way to build some key. Attacking pirates and taking out their bases gives you a nice chunk of key, so that will allow us to, say, colonize this and then recover our approval. So that's where we'll pick up in the next playthrough, which will probably be tomorrow night. I'm going to be recording mostly in the evenings. I'll try to send out a notification to everybody like I did today when I'm getting close to actually doing some recording. And then I'm going to be on vacation for about a week, so you won't see me for a while, but when I come back, hopefully I'll be chomping at the bit to get a little bit more of this playthrough done. And yeah, we'll play some Hishu for you guys, since that seemed like what most people had mentioned in the survey that they were interested in was more Endless Space 2 content, and the Hishu was definitely the faction I was most interested in coming back and trying again. So, that being said, until next time, this has been The Nose Plays, and you guys all have a wonderful day.